Hi, Facebook. It's Christine with REI Design Solutions, and you are tuning into What the Flip Live. And I'm so glad to be back here today as it's been a few weeks and we're still trying to figure out our schedule, even though we really want to try and get in here every week on Wednesdays at 1 p.m. We may have to change things up a little bit, maybe come in every other week or something, but I really want to come in here, make these videos, spend some time with you guys, get to know you and your needs as real estate investors, especially buy, fix, and flip real estate investors. So today I wanted to come on here and it's kind of off the cuff. So pardon me if I pause or have to look at my notes or whatever, but I really want to go over some questions I was recently asked from a new real estate investor. This particular real estate investor is not in the Houston, Texas area. So he's coming from a different region, but I think all these questions can apply to anybody getting into real estate investing in any area of the nation. So I think that'll work out fine. And another thing about this investor is that he was burned on his first deal, which I'm sure many of us can relate to that and attest to that. That often happens with real estate investors when they first get started. And you know what? That's okay. I mean, obviously, it's not fun to lose money, but I'm sure most of you who can relate to that can say that you learned a ton and you will not be making the same mistakes this time around as you did the last time that caused you to lose that money. So with that said, I want to just share his question. Like, I'll read his question and then I will just off the cuff answer it how I will be answering it on our phone call when he and I finally have our phone consultation, which is coming up here within the next week or so. So at any rate, I'm going to go ahead and go through these things. Now, a couple of caveats. Number one, this is for the rehab and construction side of real estate investing. This is not for buying houses, acquiring houses, sales, talking with sellers, none of that. That is not my forte. I don't even pretend to be able to help you guys with that area. There's a lot of awesome teachers out there who can help with the acquisitions side of real estate investing. I, however, am not one of those, but my specialty is on the construction and design side because most of my career was spent as a general contractor in remodeling for homeowners. And I've also managed my own general contractor, my own buy, fix, and flip projects. So that's where I come from in terms of my expertise. We're talking 15 years as a general contractor and then another 5 years just, in design and learning how to be a remodeling contractor. So I've got about 20 years of experience in this industry. So I can certainly come to the table with a lot of wisdom and advice, but I'm still learning too. So obviously, if you are tuning into this as right now live or as in the replay, by all means, shoot out some of your own wisdom that you've learned from your experience in this field. And without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and start tackling these. Oh, and I will actually have a free for this What the Flip Live. Don't know what it is yet. It'll probably have something to do with a checklist of all of these items, so you don't have to take notes and you don't have to listen to it over again or whatever. You can just get that freebie and be on your way. And I will shoot out a notification once I do have that all put together. But again, like I said, this was kind of off the cuff, but I wanted to get in here and do this. And I feel like these are really, really good questions and need to be answered. So I'm not going to sit here and yammer anymore. So the first question is, how do I quickly estimate the rehab costs to a ballpark figure? So what he's asking is, how do I come up with a ballpark figure for my rehabs? And so I'm going to list 3 ways that you can come up with a ballpark. So in other words, I think what he's asking is, if I am just walking the property, looking at making an offer on it, how do I do a quick ballpark estimate of what the rehabs are going to be, so I know what my offer is going to be. And so there's three ways that I know of myself, and I'm sure there's plenty others, but these make the most sense and work out really well. And I'll tell you which one is my favorite. So one of the ways that you can do that is do a per square foot analysis. So you take the square footage of the house. So let's say it's 1,000 square foot house, and you look at the condition of the property and determine that due to the nature of the repairs that will need to take place, you can put a square foot price to that. And so I know that some of the training that I've been through, and I don't know, I might totally hash these figures, but I know that some of the lower end rehabs, you can put like a $15 or a $20 a square foot price point to that. So in other words, your 1,000 square foot house would be a 20,000 rehab with the $20 a square foot rehab estimate. And then of course you get your middle of the road repairs and finish replacement and all that. You know, you can bump it up to $30 a square foot. And then of course any high end and any major repairs that need to be done, you're looking at more like a $40 a square foot. And a lot of people use that. That is not, never has been one of my favorite ways of estimating a job, because I feel like there's just too many variables and too many unknowns. But for some real estate investors, that works well for them, and you can do it that way and probably still be within, you know, a few $1,000s here, you know, on the upside or downside. So then the other method of doing a quick estimate on the repair costs is doing a takeoff. I prefer doing a takeoff. I have a spreadsheet, and that'll actually probably be another freebie that I'll be giving out with this. I have a spreadsheet that I have all of the possible areas or phases of the project and materials and labor for every aspect of that project. So for example, it starts out with engineer, design, concrete work, slab work. It has demo, it has rough-in plumbing, rough-in electrical. So anyway, it's got this long list of everything that would need to take place in that property to get it rehabbed and get it back on the market. And so that's what I use. And so I just enter in. Now, I know a lot of the figures in terms of what a lot of tradespeople charge for certain things. So for example, my flooring guy charges $2.50 a square foot to lay engineered and hardwood floors. So I can figure out the square footage of the house and then put that figure to it, plus put the figure of the materials, which depending on the ARV of the property, anywhere from $2 a square foot on up to $5 a square foot, so on and so forth. So you just kind of sit down, and it only takes me I don't know, maybe an hour to do a takeoff in this respect. But then at least I know I've covered every aspect of the rehab within that takeoff because of that template that I use every time. So that's how I prefer it. So the per square foot takeoff, and then just doing the traditional spreadsheet takeoff, which is the one I like. And then there's also estimating apps out there. And one of them that I've actually used, I paid for it. It wasn't cheap. It was actually created by a local contractor here in the Houston area that specializes in buy, fix, and flip rehabs. And they created this app, and it's pretty specific. It was called the Turnkey Estimating app back when I was using it a couple of years ago, but I don't know if it's the same thing, or it was a couple $100, but it really kind of covered all the bases. It had a lot of questions. You ask you questions, you'd answer it. And then by the end, answering all these, I think there was like 60 some questions, maybe more. By the time you were done answering all these questions, it kind of gave you like a roundabout figure as to what your rehab cost would be. So those are the three ways: per square foot, doing a takeoff, and using an estimating app. Those are the three that make the most sense to me. If any of you have any other suggestions, awesome. But we're going to get into how to get contractors out there to give you full-blown estimates here soon. So that's coming up in some of these questions. Okay, so the next question this investor had was, what are the right problems to look for and the wrong problems. Now, I'm going to just extrapolate what he means by that right now, because like I said, we haven't had a chance to chat on the phone yet. But what I think he means by that is, what do you look at in terms of what are the major things that need to be dealt with in order for you to get this house rehabbed and get it back on the retail market? And honestly, that's a tough question to answer from just not knowing what the project is. And everyone is so different. Those of you who've been doing this for a while know that every rehab project is so different. And it just depends. So if you're looking, and let's just say the roof is maybe 12 years old, and you're looking at it and it's still looking okay. It may have some issues. Maybe you get an inspector over in your properties. Some people advise to do that, and other people say don't do it because then you have to disclose everything that you learned through that inspection and what have you. But what I would say is, just assess everything on a case-by-case basis, whether you need to replace the air conditioning units or the flooring, or if you have to do some foundation leveling. Every property is going to be so different. And so you just have to really look at the comps. You have to assess the neighborhood, the demographic, who's going to be buying the property, and so on and so forth. And so I would say, if you don't know and you're kind of questioning, well, what should I really be looking for? Maybe pull somebody in who can advise you, maybe even get an inspection done. Maybe pull a contractor in to just bounce things off of, especially a contractor who is equipped at working with real estate investors, who understands your end game, your goals, and your profit margins and that sort of thing. So that would be my answer to what are the right problems to look for and what are the wrong problems. I say look for every problem and then assess each one of them on a case-by-case basis. So the next question he had is, what is my competitive edge in finding a rehab property? For example, a professional flipper will have a crew and systems in place, so I might not be able to be as competitive with him in terms of getting the rehab done at a lower price. How should I compete? So that's a really, really good question. And unfortunately, because you're not an experienced flipper and because you're just getting started out in rehabbing houses, it is what it is. You can't change that. And so my advice to you would be to really get whatever systems and processes you can in place right away, but take action. Don't just spend the next 2 years getting all processes in place, because honestly, you won't even really know what systems you want to have in place until you really get started in it. And then in terms of a professional flipper having a crew and systems, not every professional flipper does have a crew. Some of them do have a general contractor that they work with. So there's nothing wrong with partnering with a really good general contractor and having you and him kind of bounce things off of each other and determine the best route to go. And from that standpoint, you're not even going to have those things in place when you're bidding on the jobs anywhere, or when you're offering on these properties anyway. So then what you have to do is you have to set your price, your repair costs. This is what I'm going to spend to repair this property, because you've done the answers to the first question. You've done your per square foot, or you've done your takeoff, or you've used your estimating app to figure out what the repair costs are. Then you get people in there, whether project managing it yourself with tradespeople, or you get a contractor in there that can do it for that repair cost. And you should be able to be very competitive. And then you will start growing your company and getting your systems in place. And so it all kind of starts to fall into place from that. And Brian, hey, Brian, how's it going? He says, find a real estate investor friendly realtors too. Awesome. That's a really good advice, because a lot of these real estate investor friendly real estate agents understand what it's going to take to get that property rehabbed and back on the retail market. So I love it. Perfect. Then let's see here. The next question he had was how to scrutinize the bid and find out if it's accurate. Now, this is kind of a loaded question. So time is of the essence in real estate investing, buy, fix, and flip real estate investing. So once you get a property under contract because you've done the ballpark estimate, repair estimate, and you've put an offer on the house with those numbers, you get that house under contract, then you need to start rolling and getting everything in place. So you want to get your contractor or your subcontractors or your project manager, whatever, however you're going about it, you've got to get those people in place and you've got to get moving. So to how to scrutinize a bid, I'm assuming he's talking about a general contractor bid. My advice is, especially if you're just getting started and you don't have a relationship with a contractor who you kind of know his prices on everything to kind of figure it out yourself, then I would get at least 3 contractors to come and to look at the property. I would have a scope of work drawn up. So the order of events is you get a property under contract and you know you're going to close on that probably within a 2-week window. Some people takes them longer to close. Some people takes them quicker. So you get that property under contract. You should be able to have access to it during that period between under contract and closing. And you get those people out there to look at it. But you should have a scope of work drawn up saying, this is what we're going to do to the property. This is the order that we're going to do, so on and so forth, so that you get apples to apples bids from all of those general contractors. So if you, so when you finally sit down to look at all 3 different bids, you can kind of assess, each one of them. And also I would ask for a line item estimate too, so that you can kind of assess what they're charging for, for their plumbing, for their rough and electric, and everybody should have the same things because you provided them with the scope of work. So, and great advice. Let's see, what was his next question? Oh, what are some of the telltale signs of a contractor who's going to be expensive versus one who's going to be affordable? And again, I think that goes back to having 2 or 3 contractors come out and bid on your project, honestly, especially like the first time around. And hopefully after the first time around and you do that and you pick a contractor, hopefully then you can start to really build a relationship with that contractor and hopefully get a bunch of properties under contract and keep him busy. So that would be my advice, is to really just get several different contractors to bid on the project for you. And then, so a few other things he asked were, if starting out, how would you handle this? Oh, that's okay. So basically that's how I've handled it, doing it myself. And also I do project management and project oversight for other real estate investors. And that's really how I advise them to handle it too. So I did and I'll post it in the comments, but I did a Facebook Live a while back on I think it was the 10 steps to a profitable rehab or to an efficient, I can't remember what terminology I use, but I can post it in the comments, where I basically, and it was kind of funny because as I was putting this together, I was just like pulling it out of my brain. Okay, what do we do next? What do we do next? What do we do next? And I thought, oh my gosh, this is a lot of work. And people are going to be like, oh, that's so much work. But you know what? The truth of the matter is if you follow those steps, you save yourself so much work and you save yourself from so much crazy running around during the project if you can get a lot of those things lined out at the beginning of the project. So my advice is always to do as much as you can at the beginning of the project, like the scope of work. I also try and during that time that the property is under contract before we close, I do my design. I pick out all my finishes and I get them all into one spreadsheet so that when it comes time, when we close on that and I get my first construction draw, I can start ordering everything. Boom, 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 boom. I have it delivered to my warehouse and we have an area for each project in our warehouse where those things get stored. So we know that everything's there. We have a checkoff list. So all that stuff is in order because trust me, the first few that I did, I was running around like a crazy banshee chasing crap all over town. And it drove me nuts. I said, I'm never doing this again. And I'm going to advise everybody that I work with, all my investor clients, never to do it that way. So that's how I would handle that. And of course, my answer to the first several questions kind of relates to that as well. And then, so let's see here. From what you understand, what do you think are my biases and how should I course correct? So that is something that he and I will probably have to talk about. Everybody has their own biases. Everybody kind of goes in with their own mental blocks. I know that I'm always working on my thinking about things, and we are sometimes our own worst enemies when it comes to our thinking. So definitely that's an awesome question. I love it. And I'm looking forward to chatting with him so I can know more about maybe what his mental blocks and biases are. And then how did you help some of your clients? They might be in a completely different industry, but this helps me thinking that, okay. So he just wants to know how I help some of my clients. I'm sorry, this is really wiggly. I keep bumping my desk. So that's basically how I help my clients, is really to help them get as much tackled on the front end of the project so that they aren't chasing their tails all the way through the rest of the project. Because here's the deal, that costs you time and it costs you money. And sometimes they're both very, very related. So I like to help my clients get everything planned out, everything organized, everything in order at the front end of the project, so that as they go through the course of the project, they can course correct quicker, they can deal with situations with more wisdom and better, more balance in their thinking and that sort of thing. Because here's the deal, whether it's real estate investing, doing rehabs, whether it's, any sort of construction at all. For those of you who are in construction, who have been doing this a long time, there's always something that comes up that you have to troubleshoot. You have to be a problem solver. And so my advice to all of you out there who are getting into this is, do not let those issues that crop up set you back mentally. Don't let them take their toll on you. Don't get discouraged. Don't throw up your hands, say, what the hell? You really just have to say, okay, this is what I do now. I solve problems all day long. I'm a problem solver. And so that way, if you can look at it from that standpoint, those little things that come up are not going to kick you in the butt and just make you throw up your hands and just give up completely. So, I mean, a perfect example is I actually am working on a bathroom design or a bathroom remodel for a homeowner. And I don't know what they were thinking, but my guys, my crew out there, I brought the knobs and pulls, I was just knobs, just cabinet knobs out to the job site. I set them on the thing and I left. So this is totally, and that's another thing, take responsibility for everything because it's on you. It really is. But the more you can get used to taking responsibility, the quicker you can resolve those problems and move on instead of trying to blame shift and just get pissed at everybody else. So what basically I set them down and I left and I didn't give any instruction. I just kind of figured it was common sense. And one of the kids out there, bless his heart, he put 2 knobs on each drawer and then a knob on each door. And my client came home and I actually saw it right before that. And I forgot to mention to her that she would see this. And she came home and she was freaked out. So those are the things is, you know what, if we have to, we're going to buy another and use the drawers for that cabinet. And you just have to problem solve. And especially if you're working with clients, you have to let them know what your solution is and tell them you're going to deal with it and everything's going to be a-okay. So that is my advice to my real estate investor friends and clients. And I hope that you learned something today that you didn't know, or I hope it was a good value added What the Flip live. And so thank you so much for joining. And again, when I get all this stuff put together, I'll put it in the comments. And I also post these up onto YouTube, these videos up onto YouTube with all the resources in YouTube as well. So anyway, thank you for tuning in. You guys have a blessed week and we'll see you soon.